Up next on Carib Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Monty Alexander.
Monty Alexander, it gives me great personal pleasure to welcome you to Carib Nation Television because I've been listening to your music for quite some time. I don't play the piano, but I thoroughly enjoy piano music and steel band music, so it's a great pleasure to have you.
I'm delighted to be with you today.
For the benefit of our listeners, especially our younger listeners who may not be familiar with a lot of your work, you've been around for quite a while, about 4 decades, I'd say.
As far as
the music
world, and right. Maybe even longer, because I started out in Jamaica and I quit my professional life with the first time somebody put 2 pounds in my hand. I got hired to play at some little dance in Kingston, and the next thing you know, I went home and I showed the money to my mother and I said, "Look at this." It's just
making
where
money.
That come from? So no, I've been professional for quite some time, but it seems like a yesterday experience.
I guess that's because you enjoy so much what
that's
you're doing.
Really true. If you're enjoying what you're doing, those of us who have been given an opportunity, some say gift. I got this gift that allows me to have access to the better things, which is just to be a continuous overhaul of attitude, because to be a musician is a privilege.
Attitudinal thing as well.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the very beginning, where you grew up in Kingston, and talk about your childhood and what it is you think planted that seed to help develop your talent.
Certainly, the family and the environment, and obviously, my own way of perceiving things. Lot of laughter, and when time come to party, and the fact that on occasion I would hear musicians playing live at some little gathering, sometimes at my own house, where I would see those country people playing the guitars, banjos, and the rumba boxes playing the old-time calypso music. So I saw that, and I saw all the frivolity and the fun and
that they were having,
the naughtiness that went with it, if you remember all of that.
Yeah.
And of course, nice record collection at home. There was a piano there. My mother wanted to play the piano, and she started and got it wasn't her natural talent. She was a singer in the choir, but the music was always there, and I gravitated towards the piano from I was about 4 years old. So that was a source of outlet for me. I'd go have fun playing on this instrument and making sounds. And so from the very, very beginning, the gift was a key that came in the shape of a piano that said, this is something that you can enjoy. And from the first time I started to play notes on the piano, or bang on it, or go down, up and down those black keys, I smiled. And not long after that, I noticed people around me smiling too. Because as I started to get my confidence playing the little tunes, you would hear people going, "Yeah, play," that encouragement. Some children hear older people criticizing them, and that is a terrible blight.
That's tough.
In my case, to answer that question, I had all of those.
You had the bass, you had the rich bass.
The rich bass,
So to speak,
exactly.
yeah. So you said that your mother was a singer, so was your family generally a musical family?
Not at all.
No.
Just like handed down Jamaican families. You know, we all singing and laughing and dancing and enjoy life. You know,
Yeah.
no matter what the challenging circumstances might have been going on, there was
Resorted to the better side. We always find a
Yes.
way to smile.
access.
over
I mean,
it.
it's kind of like the blues in this country. You know,
Yeah.
the blues are people going, yeah, my baby left me and I'm about to die. Ha
Yeah.
ha ha. What
Yeah.
about them laughing about? You know, you never understand,
That's
but it's
true.
this natural thing
Tell
that
the truth, tell the story.
tell the story, but
Yeah.
find a positive expression.
Right. Is that why your music, you find that connection to American jazz and blues in a lot of the work that you've been doing?
I think so. I was just smitten with America through going to the movies or hearing those early records, a lot of rhythm and blues music
Yeah.
that people are grooving, which is the heart. This is where the whole Jamaican industry came from.
Right, right.
I heard rhythm and blues music, but for me, my real hero was Louis Armstrong,
Yeah.
who I met, I saw in Kingston, and my father gave me the trumpet the following day.
I was going to ask you whether you played any other instruments.
Tried to play quite a few, but piano was the one that made you stop and say, wait a minute, this is a feast waiting to be
Yes, I mean, so much you
had.
can do with it.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who started out with the piano also very young, and I tried to put them into the orchestra, and she didn't have room for her in the violin section, so they gave her viola. And after a while, she came to me and she said to me, "It doesn't give me that rhythm. I don't get the beat like I do on the piano, so I need to go to something else." She went to percussion, and I wondered whether the fact that you like trios had anything to do with mixing those rhythms, and whether you liked the idea of getting that beat with the bass guitar.
Well, I found out, to answer the question, I found out that this trio thing, which is basically the cornerstone of American rhythm
And blues,
section,
yeah.
and in jazz, I mean, the thing you think of is the bass player,
Right,
the drum set,
right.
and the piano. And I saw that from the very beginning. My heroes were Errol Garner, Nat King Cole, later on Oscar Peterson, and those men played a trio. And within the context of three musicians who had all these ways to express themselves with melody, harmony, but something about how the rhythm would fit in with the whole thing, and a desire to groove with the music,
to be able
and
to
that
move with it.
infectious nature that would get across to the people. I tapped into that from a very early age, and I knew that this context of three guys playing was the most intimate but yet explosive
Right.
with so few people, because I think like
Yes.
when I'm playing, sometimes I think I'm the Count Basie Orchestra. You feel like you got all this
Not
power
all-
waiting
yeah,
coming
exactly.
out to be expressed. Yeah.
So you are really the embodiment of the mixture of Caribbean and American jazz.
So
American
true.
blues.
I felt like sometimes I used to confuse myself. So what am I? What
Yeah.
am I doing here? But when I sat back and said, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a sponge
The
of all this.
rhythm, the mixture of the rhythm and the story.
And yes, and the story, and to be able to describe it musically in a way where you're telling a story with feeling.
Right.
It's a
And
constant.
people can relate to it.
Seems that's what happens.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It comes over that way, I think, and in the way that you present it as well.
Well, I feel a tendency to be joyful, you know, when the music. I'm going back to Louis Armstrong again, and a lot of the music I heard in Jamaica among the musicians, it was this way to be joyful.
Yeah.
And that's what jazz at its most high level for me is.
On the blues side, do you use the music as an escape or as a means of getting through difficult situations, as a solace?
It can be, if I remember. You know, if you're having a bleaky day.
Especially as a young child, as a young person.
I think so often I would sit at the piano maybe for a variety of reasons, but usually because I just felt happy. You know, if I was feeling upset because somebody did something I didn't like, you know, you could end up expressing yourself through. And then I found that you could express yourself in music, and instead of going out and fighting the person, you express it on the piano.
And that comes out in some of the most beautiful music very often.
It's true, very, very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your parents, many times in the Caribbean, parents are very concerned about children who want to go the direction of the arts. They're concerned about education, and for many years, Caribbean parents embraced the traditional professions. What kind of response did you have, or what kind of support did you have for your deciding to go the other way?
You know, I never really even decided. It decided it for me. You know, this thing just happened. I guess if we were going to live up to this idea of being respectable and responsible, then I would have gone in the direction of a friend of my family who was a cunning barrister. This man was like winning all the law cases, you know, and he reminded me, there was something about this guy just made me say, man, I want to be like this guy, you know, be able to be a barrister, a lawyer, and use the English language in a way where you would win these cases, and I was challenged by that. And other than a fantasy like children want to grow up to be an airline pilot or a cowboy, I want to be a cowboy, the piano and the music happened, it just elevated, it just kept going. And like I said, one day I was hired to play somewhere and I was paid money. So how are you going to get paid for something you love to do?
Exactly.
So it's little by little my folks realized that this could be my natural way. And when people start calling up and saying, you know, your son is so-and-so, and I said, really? What? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And little accolades going around your local neighborhood. And then I remember, you know, I lived not too far from Sir Alexander Bustamante. It was right down the road from our house. And I remember one time he came over to the home, and I was called upon to play the piano for Buster.
Wow.
I mean, we West Indians know about this very incredible man, this powerful man, you know, this person. And to see Bustamante back there clapping his hands.
And this kid.
You know, my confidence went up.
I'm sure, yeah. What did your parents do then, and how did they inculcate what you eventually became?
What had happened, my father had passed on, and it was my mother now. We had come to America back in the early 60s.
Right.
And my mother had to go out and seek a job, you know, working. And while she's doing this hard work thing that hopefully at that stage of her life she could have found some other things.
Relax,
and here now is her son playing in these circles where people are kind of living the fast life. So it was a very, very important thing to keep me grounded so I didn't fall victim to. And in fact, I consider that a miracle that I didn't get into problems, because there was so many dark forces.
I can imagine.
You know, the night club.
Working at
being
nightclubs,
yes, being around like people that seem to be like gangsters and.
Yeah. Now, how old were you when you were dealing with this scenario? So
17 years old.
17.
In Miami, Florida.
Wow.
I was 17, 18, 19, and I got invited to play in New York City, and it was some very powerful people, among them Mr. Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
They saw me playing in a little bar, and he and his friends said, let's hire this kid. I was the kid.
Wow.
And I, not long after that, went to New York, and I played in this club where all the fast people were. I call them fast because they live fast, you know.
Fast, yeah.
And I was around, but going back to this strong
grounding.
rounding that we get from our culture. Church, family, something inherent in when you hear Granny talk about
Yeah.
Anansi
Right. And the village.
and the village.
Yeah.
This gets in you, and if you have that grounding in you, you know the better way. So when you have
You
the
don't get swept
temptations,
away.
you don't get swept away. I'm not saying that's a guaranteed thing
But
for everybody.
it keeps the reins to some extent.
Right,
Yeah.
but that plus the blessing,
Yes, yes.
and that's how I'm still here.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because those were tricky times. There was a lot of drugs. I mean, it's bad, very, very bad
Yes.
now, but in those periods,
It was new too then.
Yes.
Sort of a phenomenon at that time, really sweeping the area.
Yeah, but the idea of the jazz musician with a needle in his arm, that was a common thing.
And you actually, did you see
I
some
saw
of
that.
stuff?
I was about 17, 18 years old when I saw these guys that I admired so much in Miami, Florida, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to play this jazz. I wanted to, oh man, this thing, and the colorful and lively people and that excitement. I wanted that, I wanted that. And one of the things I observed that was going on was this popping a pill, smoking the thing, and sticking that needle. And something I had in me told me from an early age, this is not for you.
That wasn't right.
So I called it the grace of God, and what my folks told me,
Yeah.
plus my own gumption, And I remember some of those guys who were doing these things would say, "You don't want this, boy. You don't know about this." So there was that sense of responsibility in some of these guys. They weren't always.
On the other side.
Yeah, they had a sense of like, we don't want this young guy coming up to fall into
Even
what
though
we
we
have.
got caught into it, we don't want to see another one start.
Yes, because they regretted they got
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
So I
What did that do to your mother, knowing that you were out there and that sort of thing? Were you able to talk with her about these things?
well, it's a funny and it's strange. I've probably never spoken this to anyone, certainly on a television camera.
Wow.
But I remember there was a period in Miami, and I was kind of easing into something where this guy played the drums with me. He'd pull out the little pipe, and he said, "Hey man, have some of this," And I said, well. And then a couple of times I said, "Yeah man, have it." Smoke the pipe, and I never forgot it. One night, this thing, and my head started getting all fuzzy, and my heart started beating. I went home, and I swear my heartbeat was so fast, I literally thought I was going to die. That's how bad this thing was, the effect it had on me. And I remember I knelt down, and I prayed for God to spare my life. And the next morning, and I remember I walked in my mother's bedroom, and I say, "Mommy, I'm dying." And all I know is she must have said something to me. It say, "Son," whatever she said. And it was a very peaceful thing. I remember I woke up the next morning, and it was like a big thing, a big change had happened.
Yeah.
So I had a taste of some of what that was. And she was, one of the things that happened prior to that, she sensed something going on with me, and she would sit around the breakfast table and say to my younger brother, said, "Did you read how they arrested this man from so-and-so?" I said, "Did you see how this guy went to, and I'm sitting there,
Very West Indian.
something is up,
West Indian appearance.
So all of this is to say, and I feel a responsibility saying this right now because any young person watching might be aware of the
Very
fact
important.
that this is something that we need to
You have to stop and
pass
think
by.
about, and pass that on. Yes, that's most admirable.
But my mother was
Pass
really
that on.
a strong and important part of a clear mind.
Yes, that's important.
This is a song about the bananas. The ripe ones.
Now, once you moved out and started playing with a lot of these major people, what inspired you as you went along? You kept creating music. You kept coming up with new scenarios, new music. What was your Impressions in Blue is one of your really great ones.
Thank you so
going
much.
back to the days of Ivory and Steel, where you brought the essence of the Caribbean to the forefront there.
Well, the gift that I had was the desire, first of all, to want to express these games. To me, it's like a fun thing, you know. I think every time Duke Ellington applied that pen to that paper, the man was smiling. You know, there was a thrill. You know, let me put this thing down. You know, you could feel it. You could feel it. You know, any of those kind of people. Thelonious Monk wrote a song. It was like, let me put that note. It was this feeling that you get, and I had that too. And I wanted to paint pictures, but not complicated ones that just really made us happy. And I started that from a very early age. I wanted it to be grooving. I wanted to express sentiments that were typical of our culture. I love the steel drum.
Yeah,
when I heard
greatest
pan, which is not indigenous to Jamaica, when I heard that from an early age, I loved that sound, and I imagined that married to a piano, it would create something quite beautiful.
That was one of the greatest.
And I want to give credit where it's due. The great pianist from Trinidad, Winifred Atwell, that many people forgot about, had done some things where she played with a steel drum orchestra. And I heard that. But it was very like worked out and very classical. Right.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? If I could find a steel drum player that could play these more spontaneous things. And I always had it in my mind. And one day I was walking down Broadway and I saw a gentleman who was on the corner playing the steel drum, looking for his, you know, like a few coins in the little bucket, the cup. And I said, you know, man, my name is so-and-so. Come to this club tonight where I'm playing some jazz. And he said, yes. The guy showed up with the pan, got on the bandstand with my trio, and we started playing these tunes together, and it was like heaven opened. Wow. And that's how that started. And I did it with some of the masters of the steel drum. Othello Molyneux, who was from Trinidad. Bugsy Sharp, who is like a genius.
Yes.
And I had Robert Greenidge. I never worked with Robert Greenidge, but there was a couple of other great ones that I played with. And it ran its course. I did it for a while, and I realized that the trio is still my favorite thing to do. So I got away from other instruments.
I see. I read that you identify with the struggle. People who you feel struggled, reached for what they wanted, and made it. Do you see yourself as having gone through a struggle to get there? And how does that frame your philosophy of life?
Well, it's a struggle of the spirit. You know, if it's not because you couldn't afford to put food on the table, it was this other struggle, you know, because you wanted to overcome your doubts or your fears or your negatives. And music allowed you to get closer, but there was still something that would be a barrier to that. And I always felt like this is a barrier to overcome, and I chose to seek the Creator in that regard, you know, and the combination of surrounding myself with certain positive energy, and that's a struggle in itself to want to have a better life. So, as far as the underprivileged and the undernourished people of the world, you know, I see another version of a condition where people want more than they have, and sometimes in song, which is what Bob Marley did. Yeah. He was expressing himself. I mean, after he was a millionaire, he was still writing those songs, you know, telling people to get up and stand up.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think even though I was fortunate middle class, I was around people that I became dear with that didn't have as much as you wish they did.
And you appreciated
and
that
I appreciated
struggle.
that. Yeah. And from an early age, when I saw the musicians in Jamaica who welcomed me into their fold, I was family.
Wow. Excellent. Yeah.
So it was a social event for me, not music. I didn't go to music school.
Yeah.
You know?
All natural talent.
I had a piano teacher for a while, and she used to slap me on the finger and said, "Don't play that."
Yeah.
So, you know, I went and played exactly what she told me not to play. which is what we
That's
do.
the creativity.
The jazz man is a rebel.
That's the creativity. Well, where from here? You're on a tour at the moment?
It's always a tour.
You're always on a tour.
You know, sometimes we're off for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but usually you're a happy fellow when you and your musicians can go here, there, wherever you want. Ideal travel circumstances, and you want the piano to be tuned nicely. But that's really what we're about. Music,
keeping people happy.
And challenging yourself to rise above
to the next level.
To the next level.
But how often do you get back to Jamaica?
Sorry to say, not as frequently as it used to be. But for the last 3-4 years, I've gone and participated in the Air Jamaica Festival.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you participate in any of the Caribbean jazz festivals.
I did several of the others. I played Barbados a couple of times. In fact, away from the jazz festival, I played at Frank Callimore Hall.
Oh,
you
yes.
remember Frank Callimore Hall?
Yes.
And I remember meeting some wonderful people there.
Yeah.
I've played St. Lucia Festival, Bermuda, which is maybe a little north, right?
Right.
And played in Cayman. But I kind of lament the fact that I have not been able to just go everywhere in the Caribbean, because there's a new kind of a situation with the organizations that put on the jazz festivals, and they have their people that they like to have.
I see, yeah.
They call it jazz, and it is jazz, but it may not be pure jazz.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best. It's been a great pleasure talking with you, and continue on making people happy.
I'll keep trying, and somehow you had me talking about things I normally don't speak about.
I'm glad I did that.
Pleased.
I'm very glad about that. Thank you so much for joining us on Carib Nation.
My pleasure. Thank you.